I didn't realize how far I had drifted. To the point that there were, for Tammy and I both, moments in counseling where we said, are we still going to keep fighting for this? And the answer was yes. We're going to keep fighting for our marriage. But I had to identify that the taming characteristic of comparison, I had to put it to death.
This is the Untamed podcast, where only the few dare to go. We're building a community of adventurous high achievers who refuse to trade our dreams for comfortable mediocrity so that we can unleash our untamed potential. Could you be one of the untamed few? Now, your untamed hosts, Mark Lucas and Joel Fritz.
So Mark, here we are again in your backyard.
It's good to be here again.
It's good to be here.
It's a good day when we're here.
I feel like we need to invite people here for this podcast. Just so they might sit on some lounge chairs with their shirts off, getting a tan.
That'd be a little distracting. But
look at this setting.
You're absolutely inviting people into the journey. Maybe not on a lawn chair, shirtless, while we record podcasts.
Especially not the guys I know with the beer bellies they have. Right?
Yeah, that's okay. If you have a beer belly, you still can join us.
You could be one of the untamed
in the taming process. And I've got some pounds to shed as well. So
excellent. Yeah. Well, hey, this is the Untamed podcast.
It is.
And we are always talking about how there's an original essence that we have been created with. And we want to honestly liberate men to live fully into that untamed true essence, right? And so when we're talking about that, we've come up with these 5 untamings. Basically a process that we've all got to go through because we're acknowledging that we've been tamed. We've kind of recognized that this question resonates with us. Who were you before the world told you who you're supposed to be, right? No, there's an original essence, and we want to really liberate men to live in, walk that out. Now, the untamed man looks like clear, courageous, and on their path to purpose. And so that's what we're doing here. And so today we've got a question. It's a raw question. And I'm looking forward to hearing you because I know when you speak, Mark, you come from the heart. I'm looking forward to hearing this answer. And I know you'll be asking too.
Yes.
Asking me too. So I'm prepared.
You're going to get naked as well. Naked. We're all going to get naked, all right? Not on a lawn chair, but
so
metaphorically
avert your eyes.
In your rawness, in the realness.
So Mark, would you tell us a time in your life recently, in the not too distant future, so it can be years or whatever, just tell us something, some very specific experience that you've had where you have recognized that you were tamed.
Yeah. I think the one that comes to the surface when you ask that question and probably impacted me maybe the greatest and continues to impact me the greatest. When we begin to dialogue with the few that are with us, this beautiful tribe in the audience with us, what are the characteristics of being tame? The word for me that has continually been a characteristic that holds me back and keeps me tame, it keeps me paralyzed and numb and drifting in the current, has been a word: comparison.
Okay.
And even with Q last night, who's amazing and production,
doing the video,
all the editing, props to Q. He is the man. We were talking about even last night at dinner, what comparison has done for me. And what I mean by specifically comparison is comparison in my marriage.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to, at times, fixate and allow social media and highlight reels of social media to allow a false narrative to believe that what I'm viewing in this 60 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever it might be, this short piece of video content, that is this person's highlight reel of their marriage.
Yeah.
I continue to believe that that's the raw truth reality of the everyday of their marriage. And I don't say it that clearly.
Well, it's a 30 seconds, and it tricks you into thinking that's all 24 hours worth.
Right. Or even all 31 days or 30 days worth. And yet I'm not an idiot, so I don't wake up and say, oh, everything I see on social media is real, is truth.
Most of these
But
people don't think you're an idiot as well.
But
so
you
just
see enough of them. And as I'm seeing these, I know in myself, if I'm seeing this and there's a bit of discontentment that creeps into my heart, where I become discontent in my own marriage, I become lacking joy in my marriage, lacking true contentment of where I am with my beautiful wife, Tammy, in our marriage, then that just kind of slowly drifts me away from her, away from experiencing the satisfaction that God wants for our marriages. And that came to a place that I will share at its lowest point from the outside looking in. Again, back to that highlight reel. From the outside looking in, here's where I am in this spot of my life. I'm hosting a marriage show on a radio station in drive time radio in the Phoenix market. The show is called Messy Marriages, and it's on 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, during the drive time spots of about 25 to 30,000 people that are listening in and tuning in to that radio program. So from the outside, from all the perception of me being the messy marriage host of a local drive time radio show, people would think, man, this guy, he's got it all figured out. This guy must be the flippin' expert.
Tell me what to do, Mark. Tell me what please. Tell me what to do.
You must just have the most amazing marriage in the entire world. You must just come home and your wife just want to like tear your clothes off when you come home because all she wants to do is make out with you.
But
and
there's a pill you can take for that now, right? Sorry.
But there's like all of these ridiculous perceptions. And what had happened and why comparison was at an all-time high in that season of my life is because the premise of the show 3 days a week is I was interviewing people that were married and they were sharing success stories of how they were really flourishing in their marriage. And what that did, I didn't realize it initially, it allowed me more and more to realize, wait a second, they're doing that. We're not doing this. They have this practice. They're doing this as a ritual or a date night or an experience or a trip or whatever it is. And I thought, what's wrong with me and my marriage? And I just became more and more chronically dissatisfied with my marriage. And I began to spin this unrealistic narrative of where I thought our marriage should be. And the greatest visual, we love roller coasters. We love roller coasters.
Roller coaster family, you were saying,
We are a roller
right?
coaster family. My beautiful wife, Tammy, works for a company, Hershey Family Entertainment. Shout out to them, that owns amusement parks. But we were in this journey, her and I, in our marriage, where I would grab her hand without her knowing it. And as we go up, in the up moments of the roller coaster, I would lead her up in a moment of gratitude and gratefulness, and we would celebrate where we were in our marriage. But most of the time, Joel, if I'm honest with you and the people right now that are watching this, it was more of me grabbing your hand and pulling us down. And look, why are we doing this? Why don't we have this in the way of intimacy and closeness? Why don't we have this time, this quality time? Why don't we have words of affirmation and encouragement? And my wife didn't even know what was happening. She's like, where did all this even come from? Why? We were just talking about how your day was and what was going on for dinner. And now you're grabbing my hand and comparing our marriage to other people that you have on a radio show. And that's just a long form of 26 minutes of them giving you a highlight reel. It's not the 60-second social media version. Now you just got a 26-minute version of that. And I've identified that, why am I allowing, they say comparison is the thief of all joy. why am I allowing the thief of all joy to come into my marriage
Mm-hmm.
and to just start robbing me and cutting me away from all the joy and satisfaction that I do have in my marriage?
Yeah.
That Tammy and I do have in our relationship. And the moment that I began to say, I'm going to pull my head and reorient myself from the tendencies that I have to do that. And I'm going to get to a place that, Tammy, my wife, God, will you help me? Friends, will you help me? Will you catch me when I do this?
Mm-hmm.
And will you punch me in the nose when I do this? Because I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
Because here is the fruit of what happens when I do this day after day or week after week or month after month. Most people don't realize that in marriage, somebody asked me once, they said, what is God's mission statement for marriage? And we all should have a mission statement for our marriage.
Right.
But I think it's an important question to ask.
Tough one, though.
What is God's mission statement for marriage? And I think as we look into the promises and the responsibilities and the things that God created in marriage, I think the one word that God would say is mission statement for marriage is this: oneness.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, I want a partnership and I want a oneness like you will never experience in any other relationship here on earth that you can have with your spouse.
Yeah.
And what happens in the drift of comparison is that I don't really identify that every time I compare, the oneness is this closeness like this, and every time I allow comparison to happen, there is this drift and this separation that is causing more and more of a gap and distance in the connection, in the partnership, in the trust, in the communication, in the respect that create the oneness and the partnership that God wants for marriage.
Yeah.
And so I think I didn't realize how far I had drifted, to the point that there were, for Tammy and I both, moments in counseling where we said, are we still going to keep fighting for this? And the answer was yes. We're going to keep fighting for our marriage. But I had to identify that the taming characteristic of comparison, I had to put it to death.
Yeah.
And it's always going to creep in its ugly head, but I've got to put it to death, and I can't let it be consistent in my mindset, in the way that I view my marriage, in the way that I see my marriage. And I began to have that mindset of, instead of comparing, why don't I bring to surface what I do have? Instead of comparing, why don't I be grateful for what I do have?
Yeah.
And I have so much right now
Yeah.
in the good things that I have in my marriage.
Right.
And I began to just identify and hold on to those things more and more, and thank her and thank God for those things that were so beautiful and so good in my marriage, in our marriage. And it shifted that drift to come back together, to have this beautiful partnership that we have today, that I am so thankful and so stoked to see where we are today in our marriage, because of this one reckoning and this one awareness and awakening of identifying I can't compare anymore.
Right.
And if I do, convict me, punch me in the nose, hold me to that. Don't let me do that consistently, because I've got to completely eradicate that mindset and eradicate that behavior out of my habit.
Yeah. It's often said, I can't credit the right person, but, comparison is the thief of joy. And when you're explaining that, I mean, first off, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your ability to be so vulnerable and, share that, because ultimately, as I listen, as I know other people are listening, they're hearing something that they can relate to. Because, I mean, there's no perfect marriage out there. And then when we start thinking about this thing that you offered up, comparison, I mean, is comparison going to sharpen us, move us in the right direction? I think there are examples, there are models we have to look to. We have to, I mean, honestly, we have to be, when we think about our own marriages or relationships, if we can't come up with an answer that says that is possible, then why even start? And I think so many people have actually taken that question and run with it, said, well, there's too many broken marriages and I can't succeed at this, therefore I'm not. Marriage is kind of an old construct or something. But the truth is that there are people like you, there are people like me, there are so many different examples that you and I have of people who have been successful in marriage. And then we go back to the source, our creator, who is actually speaking to us as though marriage is a good thing and part of the design. And so when you're in the middle of it, the comparison becomes, this is a culture in a world right now where it's constant comparison and one-upping. And so as we look, everybody wants to look perfect. The question is why? And I think that's where these voices come in. And when we talk about being tamed, and an example of what it looks like to be tamed, you're literally saying comparison was taming me.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to live out the actual relationship in the way that I was supposed to live out the relationship because I was being tamed by all the voices around me, giving an example of something other. It wasn't my relationship. It's not necessarily the marriage that I want. It is an example of something else, and it's taking my eyes off of this. It's taming me. It's like you use the word drifting. You're caught in the current and you don't even know it. It's almost like hypnotic in so many ways that you're starting to focus on the wrong thing. But when you realized it, you got back to the right thing. You had some people around you, because you always have your few that you are interacting with and things like that. And they helped you recognize it, acknowledge it, do something about it, take those steps forward. And those are all part of this, this untaming and untamed journey that we are on ourselves and want men to go on with us.
It's so true. And I think the last thing I would share, and then I've got the same question for you.
Oh boy.
It's for you to get raw and naked in this conversation is I began to recognize, and somebody asked me this question, and I began to honestly ask myself this question. And this is a good question for us all as husbands to ask. And the question is this: if you were to honestly ask your wife, unsolicited, and she could answer without any reservation, how many times in this last week did you experience joy interacting with your husband? And when I began
that question is just too scary, Mark.
It is scary.
If you can take that question back off the table.
Take it off the table. No, it's a great question, because at the end of the day, and you can use happiness, you don't have to say joy.
That takes some real cojones.
It takes some real cojones. And then honestly, like in that place of that comparison trap,
yes,
the answer was hardly any, maybe none in a week. And then it was the shift of, how do I begin to take and get 1% better and take steps forward?
Yeah.
To have less of a drift.
Yeah.
To be able to be untamed and to start, because untamed is having joy in your marriage.
Yeah.
So to be into a place of, in this next month, what's that step?
Yeah.
Who do I need in this untaming process to be in the tribe with me?
Yeah.
To ask the right questions. How are you doing?
Yeah.
And we began to just take her and I a journey to get to this place where most weeks, and we got a lot of negative realities and a lot of crap that we're dealing with, like most people.
Yeah.
But even in the crappiest of weeks, the most negative realities we might face, there's still moments sprinkled in of laughter and joy that we've had together.
Yeah.
So when it comes to you,
and I can see it.
When it comes to you, the characteristics of being tame.
Yeah.
What's been that characteristic for you, Joel?
Yeah.
That truly has been one of maybe the consistent characteristics that has kept you in a place paralyzed and tamed, not living out and walking out the untamed life?
Yeah. Yeah. It takes some thought, Mark. I just want to acknowledge that. And as we knew we were coming into this, I had to ponder. And so I have to pick one. I can recognize a number, but I'm going to pick one. And that one, maybe it's just closest to my heart right now, or I recognize how it matters and how it's made a difference for me becoming untamed in this area. Yeah. But I'd say there's this unique brand of taming that has taken place in my life over the years as I reflect. Decades. I mean, I can look back decades. And it's this desire to want to be good at too many things. Really time spent, I guess I have that mind that just loves a new idea. And that new idea, it takes me down. It actually, stimulates adrenaline. It gets me excited. I don't think I'm alone in that. I mean, I know people like me, so I know I'm not alone, but I think there's a lot of people like that, right?
I think you're right.
Here's an idea. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. We should go do that, right? And there's a real beauty in that. In fact, I would call that one of my greatest strengths. But as we all know, sometimes our greatest strengths, or often our greatest strengths, are counterbalanced as our greatest weaknesses, And so I think that that's something that I've struggled with in a taming sense. I'm going to not just be general, but be very specific about it. I have really loved the idea of adventure, and as I've reflected, even recently, because we've been going through this untaming process together, and as we've gone through that, what has been fascinating to me is how long my memory has become, and how short-sighted I am realizing that I've been just recently, and how intentional I have to be to go back into my memories and remember who I've been over the years, the things that I've done. And then to take that inventory and ask, when have I felt most alive? When have I felt most effective? When have I made the most impact? When have I accomplished the goals? When have I felt most true, real? When has my essence come out? Things like that. Very much part of our conversation about being untamed. And when I've done that, I started as a youth pastor and started pastoring people when I was 20 years old. And you know what I did? I would just take them on little adventures because I didn't know anything else. Yeah. All I wanted to do with people was grab them from where they were. And this was teenagers. And you have to be careful when you say grab. I'm not me. Yeah. By the shoulders and shake them. Invite them. Yeah. Invite them to youth group and take them on an adventure. And the adventure was twofold. It was, I would literally take these kids. Like I remember playing capture the flag in the deserts of Tucson. Right. I remember paintballing. I mean, I'm sure we went paintballing at least 3-4 times a year. Rock climbing, just all these little things that I knew how to do, these little skill sets that I had accumulated. And then I would teach other people, teaching people how to play the guitar. This little adventure, offering them the opportunity to do that. I had the opportunity to interact with so many different people because of that. But that was my methodology in ministry. I would say this simple thing, come on this adventure. They would come. They'd make new friends. They'd have a new experience. They'd experience a new side of themselves. And then I would basically say, you want to see this great adventure? And then I'd open the Bible. And we talk about deeper things. We talk about the biggest story in the world, the story which we're all a part of. And when they saw how they fit in that, it was extraordinary how it worked. It was that simple. But I think as the years went by, what happened is, hey, you're really good at organizational leadership. You're really good at this. Can you lead over here? We have this need over here. My own ideas I would get excited about. And all of this may seem relatively benign, but it's not benign when it is influencing the direction of your life. And you're not doing the things any longer or as much or with the level of impact that you want to do and want to have, because you're kind of spinning your wheels out here. Somebody actually just popped into my mind. Somebody said, if you want to be effective at something, we have the idea, like take the shotgun approach. If I start 7 different businesses, then I'll generate enough revenue to be able to live and be sustained or whatever. And maybe one of them succeeds. My chances are higher. But then he took some water and he emptied this in. I think this is a guy named Alex Hermosi who loves to talk about entrepreneurship. And he took the same amount of water. He said, you've only got this much energy and focus, right? And he divided it between 7 cups. And there's just this, a little bit in each cup like that. And he's like, what good is that if you poured all of them? He took all the 6 other cups and dumped them into one. He said, if you put all your energy in this one, it's going to take off faster because you're too spread thin. Mark, that's been a story of my life. I don't know how to explain it any other way. It's been the story of my life is being too excited about too many things. And so when this comes down to specifics, I think that somewhere in my 40s, I started thinking about where's that guy? Where's that guy?
That 20-year-old guy.
That 20-year-old guy.
Took people on adventure
that
talked about
that
life
was
and
like,
purpose.
let's go to, we're in Arizona. Let's drive 8 hours overnight to Magic Mountain.
Yeah.
And we take these teenagers, and I have some friends who are actually on this particular trip, and they're like, that was the worst time I've ever had in my entire life. You made us stay up all night long. Then we went to Magic Mountain all day, and then you drove us home the next night. And I'm like, yeah, it's amazing.
3 Red Bulls, we did it. Yeah.
I didn't know anything else to do because that's the kind of stuff that got my attention.
Mm-hmm.
Cliff jumping, boating, summer camp. That got my attention. So that's what I did with people. And then I'm in my 40s and I'm thinking, where'd that guy go? I have daughters and I want them to experience that now, but there's also all the pressures of life, the things that we have to deal with, well, where's the bank account? How's been in real estate recently doing development of residential homes, and, how's that market going? And where's the next paycheck going to come from? And I feel locked in, and this all culminates in this one simple thing. It's very real recently. I kept starting these businesses, and I do one business that I'd be excited about. And you see the pattern I've already talked about. Yeah. I had started a real estate business to flip some houses. I'd got some rental properties. I want to, build a few houses. I'd like to acquire some apartments, like things like that. You start thinking, you're moving forward in these directions. You're going, but where's my passion? Where's my passion? And the answer is clear when I reconcile it with my innermost person. And that's an adventure. The stuff that I did when I was young is my most natural, simple expression. And that it wasn't happening as much. And I'm like, how do I get back there? And I think that was the question. How do I get back there? Why is this missing? How do I get back there? And I started asking that question. I started reconciling. It happened real quick. I was like, well, I'm going to leave this one thing that I'm doing because I don't see that going in the right direction. But what I did is I identified, and you talked about clarity in your marriage. And I want to talk basically, I'm just saying I found clarity when I started asking those questions and being honest with myself. But it was hard because when I started to draw a little X on a map and say, this is what I think is most true to me, the path to get there was strange because I kept going, but I can go this way. So I can start this business and go over here, and then that business will sustain us to get back to this position. And it's this thought process that, like, when I was young, I jumped into ministry. It didn't matter what I was paid. When I'm in my 40s, I think about how I got to take care of the needs of my family, and I don't know how I'm going to do that and accomplish the things that are most true in my heart without total abandon. And then I'm reminded that that's what it requires. To truly uncover yourself, to truly be untamed, you have to have some sense of like that reckless abandon, that this destination is worth all of it. And I'm telling you, when I set the destination and said, okay, I'm going to stop, I'm going to kill this business, kill this thing, I'm going to keep something going that sustains us enough, but I've got to make sure that I direct energy to getting to that point as fast as possible. Boom, I had clarity. The clarity came. It's because I pushed all the other stuff away, and that's when I felt untamed. That's when I felt, again, like that resounding optimism that nothing is going to stop this. Why is nothing going to stop this? I've been there in some forms, but I'm going. That's where I'm going to. Man, I cannot tell you how good that feeling feels, right? Probably just like you're talking about when you stop comparing and you go, I love my wife and I appreciate my marriage in whatever form it's in today. It's like, that's what it starts to feel like. You go, yes, that's my destination. Yes, that's what I want. Yes, it's who I am. And I'm going to head there, and I don't care what happens. I'm not going to be tamed by my fears. I'm not going to be tamed by the idea of failure or, success or whatever it is. I'm going to go. I'm going to go for as long and as hard as I can until the world around me, or until my family's in a situation, where it truly is like, I have to care for them. I can't rip the carpet out from under them, right. But they're willing to go, and they see the passion, and they're encouraging me in it. So that's what it looked like to be tamed for me. Too many good things. We've heard it before. It's like, what's maybe the greatest enemy of great? The biggest enemy of great is probably the good.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your rawness and the realness And I think so many people will identify that what are all the good things that are really getting in the way of
Right.
what's great.
Yep.
And I think that is a beautiful question for men to wrestle with.
Yeah.
And I love your
Mhm.
rawness, and I love that you wrestled with that question. And I love you even talked about this in the first podcast. I love that you're even leaving money on the table,
Sure.
which are obviously good ventures to pursue the greats,
Mm-hmm.
to pursue that greats.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the last thing I'll say before we put a bow on this is, at the end of the day, there are these moments that I think we've got to gain more clarity as men and say, what do I want to be known for?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've wrestled a lot, and I love that you shared this with me. I want my kids
Mm-hmm.
to look at dad. I want my girls to look at dad and to begin to be, with their words and their actions, so proud of the movement and the mission that we are on to bring men to a place of being untamed.
Yeah.
I want them again to have more of that boasting with pride, boasting with just great joy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where dad's at. And I think for me, the last thing that's really helped me in moments where I'm confused to find the great,
Mm-hmm.
because I really do believe that there's guys out there right now in the few that really were asking
Yeah.
to be the elite, to be the few that will step out and step up, to be untamed. They're out there
Mm-hmm.
and they're with us. I know they are. When I don't know my great, there's many things we can do. But one thing
Yeah.
that's helped me personally, and it might sound morbid and crazy, but I'll just share it quickly. I'll drive by myself to a place that's a cemetery, and I'll just walk,
Right.
and I'll look down at the headstones, and I'll look at different words that are engraved on these headstones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll begin to ask myself the characteristics that are describing the men that are buried right below my feet. What are the words that I want my family and the people that I love so much? What are those characteristics?
Yeah.
And what are those legacy words? And now I want to become that.
Yeah.
Those are my greats.
Yeah.
I want to become those things.
Man.
And the last thing that I will say, which is so key when you have these moments in a cemetery like that, looking at headstones, there's one thing that's common on every marking in every cemetery. And that one thing is this: the dash. The dash is the most important part of the entire engraving,
Mm-hmm.
because the dash is how we're living today
Yep.
and what we do today.
Yeah.
That's our dash.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
people are wrestling with and identifying, what is my great?
Yeah.
Why am I comparing?
Yeah.
Why do I feel so tame right now?
Right.
The dash is what we do today and how we walk out that dash.
Yeah. I absolutely love it. And you just provoking all those things in me when you're saying it, because you're so spot on. And I'm hoping men are hearing that. I truly am. And I'm thinking, like when I'm looking at that graveyard, sometimes we have to reconcile the simple, because I think what that can provoke in us too is we walk among the gravestones and we look at them and we're like, I needed to say this, or I needed to say this, or there's this big long description. And in this process, as you return to when you're young and you're a dreamer,
Yeah.
versus when you get old and you get a little tamed and your dreams I have to let that go.
Yeah.
There was this title, I think I might have mentioned it in another podcast, but this title that I came up with my uncle and had little business cards made, and it said Joel Fritz, Adventure Consultant.
Yes.
And it brings tears to my eyes
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I don't care who likes that title or not,
It's your title.
but it's my essence.
Yes.
It's my essence.
Yes. It's your dash.
I want to take people on adventures.
It's
And I
our
hope
dash.
people would see me as an adventure consultant.
Yeah. That's
And I
our
hope
dash.
that more than anything, for those, I don't know where the spiritual states of the people watching, the guys watching or listening right now, but, if I can introduce them to the great adventure.
Mhm.
That's it.
And I would just add in closing, introduce you to the great adventure with great authenticity and great vulnerability.
Yep.
We are humbled to lead men on that journey.
Yep.
in a way that we are truly authentic and raw and real, let's do this together.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Thank you, buddy.
for this beautiful podcast. Thank you for the audience.
And we've got a Facebook page, and we love to have people start a conversation on the Facebook page. They can, you've got your own stuff going on Instagram and Facebook.
As do you.
Impact,
Yeah.
Authentic Impact Coaching. I'm the calling coach on TikTok, Instagram,
Yep.
and my name on Facebook. But we'd love to have you in our community on Facebook. We're emphasizing that, and we'll have some other stuff for them to do later. Some actual adventures to go on and tools to help the untaming process. Right?
Let's go.
All right, let's go.
If this episode sparked something in you, please subscribe and even share it with someone who's ready to take their life to the next level. We're always on the hunt for men who are looking to become untamed and release their untamed potential. Also, if you found value in this conversation, then please rate the podcast and leave a comment. It makes a huge impact in building our community. We'll see you next time when the adventure continues, or maybe when yours begins.